What if I told you that the life of Moses, the man who parted the Red Sea, was once saved not by a miracle, but by his mysterious wife, a foreign woman of color, in the dead of night? Welcome back to Biblical Journey, the channel that takes you deep into the stories of the Bible to uncover the hidden truths and lesser-known figures that shape the history of God's people. Today we're going to talk about someone who may not be a household name, but whose impact is undeniable. Zipporah, Moses' first wife. Zipporah's story is shrouded in mystery, and much about her life has been overlooked. Yet, as we will explore today, this woman played a critical role in Moses' journey and in the unfolding of God's divine plan. She is a figure whose actions saved lives, bridged cultures, and influenced the destiny of God's people in ways you may not have known. Have you ever wondered why Moses, the man chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, found himself in a life-threatening situation? And why was it Zipporah, his wife, who had to step in to save him at such a pivotal moment in the biblical narrative? These questions have puzzled theologians and scholars for centuries, and today we'll begin to unravel the mystery of Zipporah's life. Before we dive into the depths of her fascinating story, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Biblical Journey, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our deep dives into biblical wisdom. Your support helps us grow and spread these incredible stories to others. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and family who might be interested in learning more about the Bible. So grab your Bible, settle in, and join us as we explore the life and legacy of Zipporah, the woman whose courage, faith, and decisive actions played a pivotal role in Moses' life and in the history of Israel. Let's begin with the first time we meet Zipporah in the Bible, Exodus 2. At this point in Moses' life, he had fled Egypt after killing an Egyptian taskmaster who was beating an Israelite. Moses runs for his life and finds refuge in the land of Midian, which is far from the land of Egypt where he grew up. Midian was a place where Moses could find peace, and it is here that he meets Zipporah, the daughter of Jethro, a priest of Midian. Now, you might be wondering, who were the Midianites, and what did they have to do with Moses? Well, the Midianites were descendants of Abraham and his second wife, Keturah. They were a nomadic people who lived in the area now known as northwestern Arabia. Though they were connected to the Israelites by their common descent from Abraham, they were culturally and religiously distinct from the Israelites. Zipporah's story is introduced during an event at a well, which in biblical history is often a place of significant encounters. Think about the well where Isaac met Rebekah, or where Jacob met Rachel. Wells were important gathering places where life-changing events happened. In Exodus 2:16-21, Zipporah and her sisters are harassed by some shepherds as they attempt to draw water for their father's flock. Moses steps in to defend them, driving away the shepherds and helping them water their sheep. This moment is crucial because it sets the stage for Moses' relationship with Zipporah. Jethro, impressed by Moses' bravery and kindness, invites him to stay with them. In time, Moses married Zipporah, and through this union, he became fully integrated into Midianite society. In a way, Zipporah's marriage to Moses signifies a new chapter in Moses' life, one in which he steps away from his Egyptian upbringing and embraces his new identity within a foreign culture. Now, let's think about Zipporah's name. In Hebrew, her name means bird, which might be symbolic of her freedom or her place in God's plan. It's interesting that she was given to Moses as a wife, for she represents the bridging of two distinct worlds: Egypt, where Moses was raised, and Midian, where he now seeks refuge. Zipporah, in many ways, represents the intersection of different cultures, and her story provides insight into the complexities of cross-cultural relationships in the ancient world. In addition to her name, it's essential to consider Zipporah's heritage. As the daughter of Jethro, a priest of Midian, Zipporah was exposed to religious practices that were different from those of the Israelites. Jethro, however, is portrayed as a wise man who acknowledges the God of Israel, which was rare among the Midianites. This religious connection would play a key role in the unfolding of Moses' mission, as it demonstrates that not all people in the surrounding nations were ignorant of Israel's God. Despite these differences, Moses and Zipporah's marriage represented a fusion of cultures and beliefs. Moses, raised as an Egyptian, would have had a complex understanding of religion and spirituality, while Zipporah brought with her the traditions of the Midianites. Their relationship, though likely fraught with tension due to their differing backgrounds, set the stage for a greater understanding between the Israelites and their surrounding nations. One of the most puzzling and dramatic moments in the Bible occurs in Exodus 4:24-26. In this passage, we see a mysterious event where God attempts to kill Moses. Why would God, who had just chosen Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, suddenly seek to take his life? The answer, though not immediately clear, has to do with Moses' failure to circumcise his son, a crucial part of the covenant that God had made with Abraham. Circumcision was a key symbol of God's covenant with his people, as described in Genesis 17:10-14. It was a physical mark that identified the Israelites as belonging to God. And yet, despite the importance of this covenantal sign, Moses had neglected to circumcise his son. The reason for this oversight is not explained in the text, but it is widely believed that this failure was a serious breach of Moses' responsibility as the leader of Israel. Enter Zipporah. In the moment when God threatens Moses' life, Zipporah quickly understands the gravity of the situation. She takes a flint knife, performs the circumcision, and touches Moses' feet with the foreskin. "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me," she says, referencing the bloodshed required to fulfill the covenant. This act of courage and quick thinking saves Moses' life and restores the covenant between God and Moses. Zipporah's intervention here is critical for several reasons. First, it highlights the importance of the covenant between God and his people. Circumcision was not just a physical act, it was a profound spiritual requirement that marked Israel as distinct from the nations around them. By neglecting this act, Moses had endangered both his life and his mission. Second, Zipporah's action shows that she understood the gravity of the covenant and acted decisively to preserve it. Her words, "bridegroom of blood," are a subject of much debate among scholars. Some believe that this phrase expresses Zipporah's frustration with the ritual of circumcision, which was painful and symbolic of the bloodshed required to fulfill God's covenant. Others interpret her words as a mixture of anger, relief, or recognition of the serious commitment involved. Whatever the precise meaning, Zipporah's quick thinking saved Moses, and by extension, the mission that God had set before him. This episode is a pivotal moment in the relationship between Moses and Zipporah. While Moses had been chosen by God for a monumental task, Zipporah's actions here demonstrate that she, too, had a significant role to play in God's plan. Her understanding of the covenant and her willingness to act in a moment of crisis highlight the strength and courage she possessed. It's a reminder that while Moses was the leader of Israel, Zipporah played an essential, though often overlooked, part in ensuring the success of that leadership. As Moses' mission to lead the Israelites out of Egypt progressed, Zipporah's position as a foreigner in Moses' life became even more significant. Moses, now fully committed to God's calling, faced numerous challenges, including dealing with the cultural and spiritual tensions that arose from his marriage to Zipporah, who was a Midianite. In Exodus 18, Zipporah's story takes an interesting turn when we learn that she and their children are temporarily sent back to Midian while Moses continues his work in Egypt. This move, though not fully explained in the text, was likely made for their protection. The task Moses was called to undertake was a dangerous one. He was about to confront Pharaoh, one of the most powerful rulers in the ancient world. It's plausible that Moses sent his wife and children away to ensure their safety while he focused on his mission. There is another reason Zipporah's return to Midian could have been necessary: the tensions between Moses' divine calling and the cultural differences between him and his wife. Zipporah, as a Midianite, was not raised in the same spiritual traditions as the Israelites. While Jethro, her father, was a priest who acknowledged the God of Israel, Zipporah's upbringing likely involved a mix of spiritual practices that may not have been aligned with the strict monotheism of the Israelites. This cultural and religious divide could have created difficulties in their marriage, particularly as Moses became more deeply involved in leading God's people. Moses' decision to send Zipporah and their sons away, though difficult, also highlights the immense responsibility he faced as Israel's leader. His mission to confront Pharaoh and lead Israel out of Egypt was fraught with danger, and Moses might have needed to isolate his family from the potential peril that surrounded him. Zipporah, understanding the gravity of the situation, likely agreed to return to her father's house for a time, knowing that Moses had a higher calling. Later, in Exodus 18, Jethro brings Zipporah and their children back to Moses after the Israelites have been safely delivered from Egypt. This reunion is marked by a moment of deep respect and affection, showing the strength of the family bond and the restoration of unity after a period of separation. This reunion also serves as a reminder that despite the pressures of Moses' divine mission, the importance of family and kinship remained central to God's plan. One of the most significant and controversial moments in the relationship between Moses and Zipporah occurs in Numbers 12, where we read about Miriam and Aaron criticizing Moses because of his Cushite wife. The term Cushite in the Bible generally refers to someone from the region of Cush, which corresponds to modern-day Sudan or Ethiopia, and is often associated with African heritage. This raises the possibility that Zipporah may have been perceived as someone with African ancestry, which could have led to prejudice or discomfort, even within Moses' own family. Miriam and Aaron, Moses' sister and brother, seem to have been critical not just of Moses' leadership, but of his marriage to Zipporah. They likely viewed her as an outsider, someone who didn't fully belong to the Israelite community. This criticism reveals a deeper issue of cultural and racial prejudice, which was present even among God's chosen people. In the ancient world, racial and cultural boundaries were often rigid, and intermarriage between different peoples could lead to tension and conflict. However, God's response to Miriam and Aaron's criticism is both powerful and instructive. In Numbers 12:9-10, God becomes angry with Miriam and Aaron for speaking against Moses and punishes Miriam with leprosy. The divine judgment serves as a clear message. God does not tolerate prejudice, and those who speak against his chosen people will face consequences. Miriam is eventually healed, but the incident underscores the importance of embracing diversity within God's people. Zipporah's position in this story is noteworthy. Although the Bible does not directly address her reaction to Miriam and Aaron's criticism, it is clear that Zipporah, as a foreigner in the Israelite community, would have faced significant challenges. Not only did she navigate the complexities of being married to Moses, but she also had to contend with the prejudices of those around her, including Moses' own siblings. Her strength and resilience in the face of such adversity are commendable, as she continued to stand by Moses despite the cultural biases that existed against her. This story also reveals the deep cultural and racial tensions that existed within the Israelite community. While Zipporah's heritage was rooted in the family of Abraham through Keturah, her status as a Midianite and possibly as a Cushite brought her into conflict with the Israelites' stricter religious and cultural norms. However, despite this, Zipporah remained an integral part of Moses' life and mission, highlighting that God's plan often involves individuals who who don't fit the traditional molds of the community. While Zipporah's life is often overshadowed by the larger narrative of Moses' leadership, her actions had a profound impact on the unfolding of Israel's history. As we've seen, she was not only a supportive wife, but also a woman of great faith and courage. Her swift action in performing the circumcision of her son saved Moses' life, and her understanding of the covenant was critical to the survival of God's plan for Israel. Zipporah's faith, though not as explicitly recorded as that of other biblical figures, is evident in her actions. She recognized the seriousness of God's covenant and did what was necessary to fulfill it, even when it meant taking matters into her own hands. Her quick thinking in the moment of crisis demonstrated her deep connection to God's will. In a way, Zipporah represents the often overlooked heroes of faith, those who quietly, without fanfare, play pivotal roles in God's grand narrative. Moreover, Zipporah's legacy challenges us to look beyond the surface and recognize the value of individuals who may not fit the traditional mold of heroism in the Bible. While the Bible often highlights male leaders, Zipporah's story is a powerful reminder that women too have a significant role in God's plan. Her faith, courage, and wisdom were essential not just to Moses' mission, but to the fulfillment of God's promise to Israel. In conclusion, Zipporah's life offers valuable lessons for us all. Her story reminds us of the importance of faith, courage, and standing firm in the face of adversity. While Zipporah may not have received the same attention as other biblical figures, her actions were indispensable in fulfilling God's plan for Moses and Israel. Throughout the Bible, we see many examples of powerful, faithful women who play pivotal roles in God's plan. From Ruth and Esther to Deborah and Mary, these women not only provided crucial support to the male figures of the Bible, but were also used by God in extraordinary ways. Zipporah stands in this great lineage of women who played indispensable roles in shaping the destiny of God's people. Zipporah's role in the Bible highlights the often overlooked contributions of women to God's work. While Moses is often celebrated as the leader of Israel, it is important to remember that without Zipporah's intervention, Moses would have faced an early and tragic death. Without her courage, Moses might not have been able to fulfill his calling to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Her actions, though quiet and sometimes overshadowed by the larger events, were critical in securing the future of God's people. This serves as a reminder to all of us that God often works through unexpected people and in unexpected ways. Zipporah was not a prominent leader, nor did she have the same public recognition as Moses, but her influence was no less significant. She teaches us that God's kingdom is not built on fame or status, but on faithfulness and obedience. Whether seen or unseen, every role in God's plan is vital, and Zipporah's legacy serves as a powerful testament to that truth. Another important aspect of Zipporah's story is the cultural and religious tension that comes with being in a cross-cultural marriage. Moses, as an Israelite, was chosen by God to lead his people, and Zipporah, as a Midianite, came from a different cultural and religious background. While Jethro, Zipporah's father, was a priest of Midian who acknowledged the God of Israel, the Midianite traditions likely still differed from the monotheistic practices of the Israelites. Moses, on the other hand, was deeply immersed in Israelite law, which called for strict adherence to the covenant and the rituals that distinguished Israel from other nations. The marriage between Moses and Zipporah, while not without its challenges, also illustrates how faith transcends cultural boundaries. In many ways, Moses' union with Zipporah represents God's call to break down the barriers that separate people, whether those barriers are racial, cultural, or religious. Even though Zipporah was from a different nation, her faith and willingness to support Moses in his mission demonstrate that God can use people from all backgrounds to further his kingdom. This dynamic is especially evident in the story of Zipporah's intervention when she performed the circumcision of her son. Her understanding of the covenant, even as a Midianite, shows that God's truth is not confined to one culture or nation. The faith of the Israelites is not bound by ethnicity, and God's grace extends to all people who choose to walk in His ways. In today's world, the message of Zipporah's life remains just as relevant. As we navigate our own relationships and communities, we are reminded that God's love knows no boundaries. Whether it's in marriage, family life, or the broader society, God calls us to embrace people from all cultures and backgrounds, recognizing that He has a plan for all His people, regardless of where they come from. Looking deeper into Zipporah's actions, especially the episode where she circumcised her son, we can uncover profound spiritual lessons that go beyond the immediate context of her life. Zipporah's quick response and willingness to step in when Moses was in danger highlights the importance of being attuned to God's will, even when it involves challenging and uncomfortable tasks. The act of circumcision was not only a physical act, it was a profound spiritual statement about being consecrated to God. By circumcising her son, Zipporah reaffirmed the covenant that God had made with Israel, ensuring that her family remained part of God's people. This act, though painful, was a powerful reminder of the cost of obedience. Just as circumcision represented the shedding of blood, Zipporah's intervention in this moment symbolized the shedding of her own comfort and safety to preserve the spiritual integrity of her family. In a broader sense, Zipporah's action serves as a metaphor for spiritual readiness. Just as Moses needed to be prepared to lead God's people, his family also needed to be prepared. The covenant, which required faithfulness and obedience, was not just an outward ritual, but a sign of inward commitment to God's call. Zipporah, by performing this act, demonstrated that obedience to God's covenant is not just a matter of tradition, but a matter of life and death. This story calls us to reflect on our own spiritual readiness. Are we willing to take action when God calls us, even when the task is difficult or uncomfortable? Are we ready to fulfill the commitments we have made to God, even when it requires personal sacrifice? As we close out our exploration of Zipporah's life, it's important to recognize the lasting impact she had on the history of Israel and God's divine plan. Zipporah may not have been as well known as Moses, but her story offers rich spiritual insights that we can all learn from. Her role in Moses' life demonstrates the importance of partnerships in God's work. She was not only a wife, but a key player in the fulfillment of God's covenant with Israel. The Bible teaches us that God works through ordinary people to accomplish His extraordinary purposes. While Moses was the chosen leader of Israel, Zipporah's role was no less significant. Without her, Moses' mission could have been jeopardized, and Israel's history could have unfolded quite differently. In Zipporah's story, we find a profound example of how God can use anyone, regardless of background or status, to fulfill His purpose. God is not bound by human expectations or societal roles. Zipporah's story serves as a reminder that each of us, no matter our circumstances, has a vital role to play in God's kingdom. Zipporah's life is a powerful testimony to the quiet yet profound ways in which God uses ordinary people for extraordinary purposes. Through her courage, wisdom, and faithfulness, Zipporah played a key role in shaping the destiny of God's people. Her actions, though often overshadowed by those of Moses, were essential in ensuring that God's covenant with Israel was preserved. As we reflect on Zipporah's legacy, we are reminded that our own actions, no matter how small or unseen, can have a lasting impact on God's work. Whether it's through acts of obedience, stepping into difficult situations, or supporting those around us, we all have a part to play in God's greater plan. If you found this exploration of Zipporah's life meaningful, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this video with others who might benefit from learning about this incredible woman of faith. Your support helps us bring more biblical stories to light and continue exploring the wisdom of the Bible together. Thank you for joining us on Biblical Journey. We hope that Zipporah's story has inspired you to look for the quiet acts of courage and faith in your own life and in those around you. Stay tuned for more insights and deep dives into the timeless stories that shape our faith. Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep growing in God's Word.